Hi, my name is Mike, and I'm here to read a comic. And today's comic is Batman with Robin, the Teen Wonder, issue number 230, dated March. I'm tempted to say 69, but it could be 70. I didn't really check. It is dated, 1971. So this issue is older than I thought. It is a classic Batman cover. It looks to be drawn by Irv Novak, who is one of the top Batman artists, in my opinion. Definitely in this era. I would say after Neil Adams and Jim Aparo. And Jim Aparo was a little later. I would say that Irv Novak was like the best Batman artist. He did a lot of great work. And he really laid out the template. He wasn't copying Neil Adams, but they had a similar dynamic. And they both shared kind of a lot of the same ideas about how to draw Batman. Irv Novak was a long time DC artist. He was very professional. His comics did have a unique look to them. They were very modern looking. When Irv Novak would draw characters, he was using fashion of the day. So, he was particularly well known for his work with the Flash, and what you saw from them was Barry and Iris. They were a very modern 1970s couple. So it kind of wasn't like with Jack Kirby, where Jack Kirby would often draw things or people or fashion that was familiar to him. So this is why you would see 1970s comics drawn by Jack Kirby, and there are guys with fedoras on. But Irv wasn't like that. Irv was the guy who got, the Sears catalog every year. He remembered the outfits he liked. He probably based a lot of what Iris was wearing based on what his wife was wearing. And Barry probably dressed the same way that Irv did. Irv was very professional in that he did not have an emotional tie to the comic he was drawing. So when he was pulled from the war comics to the superhero comics, he didn't fight that change. He was like, yeah, sure, whatever. When he was told that he would be reassigned from Batman to the Flash, he was like, sure, whatever. Irv did not have a real deep emotional connection to the stories he was drawing and the characters and the art. But nevertheless, Irv gave comic book readers what they wanted. And this was a dynamic, modern-looking comic book. And this is the same here. The cover, as I had mentioned, is a classic. This looks like the Batman, as editorial like to call him, versus the El Rukns. The El Rukns were this insane motorcycle club that was based in Chicago. They were a black motorcycle club, and they do exist. I see them, I would see them every summer in the city here. But the El Rukns actually wanted to get into the supervillain. They wanted to get into the supervillain category, so they had contacted Muammar Gaddafi of Libya and said, "Hey, if you need some extra terrorists, you can call on us." But the thing is, Batman isn't going up against these guys. This is just simply to sell a comic book. They wanted to get that kid's 15 cents, so they gave him this cover to entice them. And often DC at the time would center their stories around cover ideas. So DC editorial would come up with an idea for a cover, and then they would tell the writer, write something around this. This is why sometimes the story that you were reading and what was promised on the cover, they would barely touch each other. We can see there are a few white guys straggling at the end, but yeah, this is mostly African American group, even though there are no real African Americans in this story. But it is a contemporary story. It's about gangs, and gang issues were kind of a big thing. And there were gangs who started off as kind of criminal organizations, but they blossomed into doing other things. The Black Panthers were never a criminal organization, but they were starting to blossom, and they were in the public zeitgeist, and they figured, hey, the kids might like this stuff. This is how we're going to appeal to African Americans. We're gonna put a bunch of threatening looking ones on the cover, and we'll have Batman beat them up. Okay, so I'm gonna go into the story. I'm gonna skip the ad. No need to talk about it. Okay, so we're told that the title of the story is The Takeover of Paradise. The story is written by Frank Robbins. Yeah, I think Frank did a decent job. Frank was one of the better Batman writers of this time. Frank did take stuff from, ripped from the headlines. But Frank's idea or his interpretation of what was going on was, it was a little bit boomer. As I mentioned, the art is by Irv Novak and Dick Giordano. And he did a very good job embellishing. You can always count on Dick. He was a Dick that you can count on. Okay, so Batman is kind of telling this story in flashback. So he's narrating the story to the reader. He's talking about the Battle of Slum City. And it was a project that he was going to work on. Batman was odd. He prowled Gotham for looking for crimes, but he tended to stay away from the slums. So I guess the idea with Batman was that he was going to stop crime in areas where the 1% felt safe. And we see the combatants here. So these are two gangs here. None of them are using guns here. So this is all fist. And that actually was the case around this time. When I believe the Bloods were first created, the gang member who was leading them, he had grown up in a time where gangs settled things with fist. And I think he had started the gang around 71, but around 72 he ended up in prison. Of course, he was still the leader. He was still recruiting guys from prison, but the gang culture had changed. It went from fists to knives and then to guns. And that changed everything, because if you get into a fist fight with someone, you could let it go, and it was fine. If you got into a knife fight, it was a little more difficult depending on how you got injured, but you could let that go. This is, between the gangs. If someone used a gun, you had to retaliate. And you had to use a gun. So this is why violence escalated, because the gangs grew so much. And some of these guys, they didn't want to fight with their fist. They couldn't fight with their fist, but they could fire a gun. So anyway, we look at the gangs here. Honestly, they kind of look like managers of Trader Joe's, because they have the Hawaiian T-shirts here and the pink shirts, and they're wearing their shades. This one guy's wearing his sunglasses at night while fighting another guy. And Batman comes across this. He's kind of looking at the territory. He's kind of trying to figure out, once I enter this area, what type of strategy should I use? He comes across this gang fight, and he jumps in. He calls it juvenile mayhem, because these are juvenile delinquents. Again, this is Frank Robbins. This is a guy who, he came of age in the 1930s, 1940s. And Batman scopes out, and he figures out who the leaders are. So he breaks up the leaders, which kind of breaks up the rest of the fight. We have our two gang leaders. They do play a big role in it. One is called Rap, and the other is called Shades. Shades is the one who always has the sunglasses. So this is how we kind of tell them apart. Otherwise, like I said, they look like two Trader Joe managers. Shades is saying, "Dig, Rap, it's the establishment." And Rap says, "Yeah, Shades, it's the man himself." And then Shades says, "Let's learn the Batman. We don't need no outsiders messing in. We don't need no stinking badges to settle our disputes." And then Rap is agreeing with that. Like, we give him the business together. So this is Batman is bringing two gangs together in violence against himself. Turn the page. So anyway, Batman, he's not tolerant of these guys. He's a Whole Foods guy. He doesn't care for Trader Joe's. I love Trader Joe's, but the Batman, he has higher standards. And he throws these two into the rest of the gangs. So the fight's officially over because Batman has broken it up. Batman lays a challenge to these gang members. He says, "You want to make big names for yourself. You won't do it by dumping me because you won't be able to. The establishment, ooh, I protect that, or each other. You've got to make your own rep the hard way." And then he continues, "You got legitimate beefs against this turf, this society? Question mark. Then get together and maybe you can lick 'em. Just maybe." The guys are listening to this. He's saying, "You want us to lick things up?" They're like, "Oh no, we're not heading down to the village spa there." But what Batman means is getting together, organizing, and cleaning things up. So the next day, we see that the two gangs have merged into one, and they're calling themselves the Brave Barons. So rather than fighting each other, they're going to go out in the streets. They're going to clean things up. Presumably, they're going to have patrols, make things safer. There were gangs who did do this. I think the Young Savages or the Flaming Skulls in the mid-'70s, they did that. Batman is helping out. He thinks this is great. He sees free labor here. He sees that these guys are cleaning the city up for free. They don't have to bring in any taxpayer-paid, sanitation workers. This will kind of scope things out easier for the Batman. He can kind of take a look and see what parts of the slum he wants to gentrify. Believe it or not, it wasn't. Crime stopped in these areas not because of tough guys like Batman, but because the yuppies came in. And I think the first movie that was ever done on gentrification in America, and it was called Urban Renewal back then. Mad Magazine would sort of make fun of it. Was a movie called The Landlord. Landlord is a great movie. And it's like the first movie about gentrification, but the main focus isn't that. But it was shot in Park Slope when Park Slope was a slum. And Park Slope is one of the richest areas in America in terms of real estate. So anyway, it looks like things are going well for Batman here. I'm going to turn the page. Now, we see a panel here, and we see a few panels here. I suspect that this might be the real Batman story. And we see Batman. He's tired. He's had a late night in East Village, kind of a homage to The Village, that's where gentrification officially started. And that's when you had like the die yuppies die. So anyway, Batman here, he looks terrible. He's slouching. His cape is a weight. Batman feels the weight of what is going on. He feels the weight. He's sort of very dazed and kind of hazy, not fully there. And we see Alfred here. Alfred is sitting. So the thing is, the whole status thing of having a butler and having the servant stand at attention. Alfred was like, fuck that. He's in Arthur mode. The movie Arthur with John Geldof. He's that type of butler here. So Batman's saying he had a rough night. Alfred is saying, "Yeah, I heard on the news. Since you haven't been around lately, I've been sitting my ass watching TV." And Alfred says, "But it looks like you missed the big West Side Story. It's on now." Batman sees Shade and Raps, and they're on the TV. And Alfred's saying, "Listen, the rest of the gang is on the TV, and they're doing things." Now, this is what I think is going on really with Batman. When you saw the interactions of Batman, swinging around Gotham City, looking for crime, interacting with the gang, that's all in Bruce Wayne's head. And what's happening is that he's really just walking around aimlessly in the Wayne Manor in a Batman outfit, and he's just having these adventures in his head. Alfred has totally given up on Bruce. This guy's a nutcase. I'm just gonna sit my ass down and do nothing and just kind of babysit him, and just make sure he doesn't go bathroom in his Depends. So I think that there's this dual dynamic where Batman, Bruce Wayne, Batman, he's just he's gaslighting himself while he's just kind of walking around very sadly in this lonely mansion. And Alfred's there just taking advantage, just, cashing his checks, enjoying Bruce's furniture and food. So anyway, what's happening with the gang is that they built a new high-rise in that area. 'Cause like I said, the one percenters, they're going to look to gentrify. And the thing is that the gang, the Brave Barons, they're occupying the building. And the reason they're occupying the building is that they agreed to do what they did in exchange for promises from the establishment. There was going to be affordable housing. There were going to be more services put into the neighborhood. Because the thing is, you can't rely on just volunteers to do it. You really do need government services. And we're seeing this problem because the less money that's spent on these services, the quality of life goes down. Except for those very few who are hoarding the resources. So basically, the gang is making an ultimatum to the city, saying they're going to take over Paradise Towers. And rather than it being these high-priced co-ops, they want the building to cater to affordable housing. Again, this is urban renewal, and this is sort of the fight there. Now, Commissioner Gordon is there. He's addressing the gang. Now, the thing about the gang and the occupying the building is that they actually have a chain around the building itself, so with a huge padlock. Now, the weird thing is that they do have this reporter inside. So presumably, they would have to open the door and he would have to go under the chain. Now, the chain does play a big part in the story. So we see Commissioner Gordon. He's trying to negotiate with them. He's saying, "Listen, we have developers here. They're getting a little antsy. They're starting to call my office. Can you guys just give up this little performative act so Gotham can get back into making some money, some big money?" Commissioner Gordon says he won't press trespassing charges. So that's what he has to offer. He doesn't have anything tangible to offer. He just says, "We'll be less asshole-ish toward you guys." The gang members, they're not buying it. We see Rap and Shades here. They're angry at this. They're insulted. Trespass? Man, this is the people's property. Our taxes are sweat. And then Shades says, "You keep promising low-cost housing to our people, so we're taking it." So they're going to be squatters at this point. The gang member Rap, I'm assuming, is probably based on, I think his name was H. Rap Brown or is H. Rap Brown. He was a well-known member of the Black Panthers. So I'm assuming that this guy Rap is based on him. He's colored slightly darker than Shades. Turn the page. So we have the reporter here. He's asking the question, how will police commissioner handle the defiance? He'll do what he always does, which is call Batman. And the TV reporter is also saying, he made a decision. A lone officer crosses the street carrying a cable cutter. There's no bulletproof protection here. He just drew this guy from straws, saying, "Hey, I kind of met your wife. She didn't seem that much into you. Maybe she'll appreciate the pension funds or the pension checks after you buy it." This guy's kind of nervous here. He's about to cut that chain, and then Rap says, "Man, I wouldn't do that." And then Shade says, "Unless you want to bring down this luxury heap in a pile of rubble." So the police officer is a little confused. And what they're explaining to him is that the chain is attached to a bunch of high-level explosives. During the late 60s, early 70s, there were a lot of radical bombings. I think the most well-known one was when a group of weathermen actually ended up bombing themselves in a townhouse they were renting because they were building another bomb and it kind of blew up in their faces. I think a well-known heiress named Catherine Ogman was amongst the individuals who died. A few other individuals literally had their clothes ripped off of them. So while their person was fine, they had no clothing, and they were running naked through the village. So anyway, again, this is a timely event at the time. The police officer is pointing out that this would be suicide for everyone nearby. However, the gang is willing to pay this price. So they're prepared to die for their beliefs here. And then they make new demands on a bullhorn here, saying that they're going to be in the renter's office. They'll decide who could rent here. But if you guys want to talk to me, that's where you head to. And they're going to leave a couple of their members to guard the entrance. So here are two other members you have to know: Mouse and Kitten. Kitten is a female member. Mouse is just this kind of mousy guy. They're sort of the second in commands. So the thing is, the two head guys, Rap and Shades, they're gonna go up to the renting office, and that's where they're gonna hold up. And meanwhile, Mouse and Kitty are gonna stay in front of the entrance to keep an eye on the police officers and Commissioner Gordon. Gonna turn the page. So anyway, Batman, he's still in his outfit, just kind of hanging around his mansion here, just kind of haunting the place. Batman's watching all this on TV. And Alfred is saying, they'll listen to you, Batman. You've got to intercede. And Batman says, do I? And give approval to their illegal, insane tactics? Not a chance, Alfred. They're no longer kids playing take-the-turf games with each other. So Batman's saying, I'm not going to get involved. Now, what's weird is that Bruce is continuing the conversation, but he's doing so from bed. So at this point, Batman, as he was taking off, as Bruce Wayne was taking off his outfit, his costume, he was still continuing this exchange with Alfred. At some point, I don't know, Alfred was not in that room, in the master bedroom. So when Bruce entered the master bedroom, he was still talking to Alfred in his mind. And then he says, just before he's going to go to sleep, they're grown men in a man's world, and they play games with civilized rules or suffer the consequences. I've had it. They're on their own now. And click. He turns off the light. Bruce Wayne is going to sleep here. Alfred, he's just sitting watching the news. Nothing has changed, but the thing is, the police haven't stormed the building. Probably today, the way police tactics are used, they would have long stormed this area, regardless of the consequences. There's this real kind of authoritarian domination streak that has gotten into policing. If you watch the movie, and I highly recommend it, The Sugarland Express, it was based on a real incident that happened in '69. The movie came out in '74. It was Steven Spielberg's first movie, and starred Goldie Hawn, who looks absolutely beautiful in it. It's a terrific movie. And you look at how the police handled that situation compared to what you would see today. Because they did have an officer who was being held hostage. But at the same time, they didn't force the issue. They let it play out, and it looked foolish because at this time, the perpetrators were heading toward a particular point, and the police knew it. But at the same time, they were calmly following. So you'd see a convoy of 10 police officers following this one car. Most people would say, hey, why aren't you doing something about this now? But the police back then were a little less insecure, to say the least. They were a bit more patient and so forth. So these police officers are kind of more like the ones that you saw in Sugarland Express. So anyway, Rapp and Shades, they're looking at the police officers. They're kind of kind of making an assessment of the situation. They're noticing that the police officers are still there, duh. However, Shades doesn't believe that their demands will be granted. So of the two, Shades is a bit more cynical about what will happen. I'm going to turn the page. So we see Rapp and Shades. They're still talking amongst each other. It looks like Shades felt that they should have just blown up the building. His attitude is they're never going to use it for low-income housing. They're just going to try to trick us and kind of loophole their way out of this situation. And Shades is sort of we should have just destroyed it out of spite. Rapp doesn't feel that way. He doesn't feel that they would learn a lesson. Shades believes that would teach them a lesson. Rapp doesn't believe that. And he also still wants to keep this place as a possible low-income housing. So he still believes. He still believes in his vision, where Rapp is sort of this is probably not going to happen. The two are still talking. They're talking about the fact that this was a grandstand play, and what they were looking for really is for an audience. They wanted people to hear what they had to say. And kind of sympathize with them. Again, this is something that was seen in Sugarland Express. But then Rapp is going to do something surprising. Shades doesn't know what Rapp is planning because Rapp has the bullhorn, and then he calls to the police saying, "Listen, we're ready to talk, but we're only going to talk with one guy, the Batman." And editorial around this time had made a conscious effort to refer to Batman as the Batman with the article. I think it took fans a couple of years to catch on to this. But that was a decision by editorial. So anyway, Bruce Wayne, he's on the bat phone with Commissioner Gordon. He's probably wondering why it took him so long. But yeah, Bruce here doesn't want to go out as Batman. He's saying, listen, if I show up, this will affect my branding, and it will tell everyone that, hey, you can do something illegal and showy, and I'll respond to it. And Bruce is very, very sensitive to the brand that Batman has. He doesn't want to do it. Commissioner Gordon, he's beside himself. He doesn't know what to do, so he always calls Batman in. And Commissioner Gordon is saying, listen, if this thing blows up, I'm going to blame you for it. Yeah, I'm the police commissioner. I'm here, but nevertheless, since I always rely on you, I might as well blame you for it if things go sideways. So Bruce agrees. He goes into action as Batman. He's kind of pissed off though. He's angry at the spoiled brats, wanting him to pull their chestnuts out of the fire. He could very well be talking about Commissioner Gordon, but nevertheless, Batman, ever the one percenter, he's going to punch down and he's going to blame the gang members for this. Alfred's confused by this. Again, this growing thing that maybe this story is being generated by Bruce Wayne's psychosis. Alfred's wondering, where the hell is this guy going? Is he going to have to go out and hunt the grounds for him? As you know, Bruce Wayne as Batman is fighting these invisible enemies. We go back to the building here. We see Mouse is talking to one of the minions here. Oh no, Mouse is the minion, and they're kind of talking, and Mouse is reporting, the Fuzz passed the word to me. He's on the way. The Batman. Gonna turn the page. So we got this coming. We got an ad here from Aurora, their West Hampton company. I remember these. They were fun. They were like, you know, you had the gun and you had to press it a bunch of times to generate enough electricity for the cars to go on these tracks. I'm going to turn the page. Yeah. Although it never made me a car person. I just didn't care about them. So anyway, it looks like Rap and Shades are talking amongst themselves. Rap is saying, Batman, the only one we can trust. This is a standoff. But with him as a go-between, and Shade says, the man just bowed down to us and says, take our pretty paradise and move your filthy creeps in. Ha. So the thing is, there's a dispute between Rap and Shades about the meaning of Batman arriving. Rap is taking it as, you know, Batman's here to help us. You know, he's going to understand. He's going to speak for the establishment, and the establishment is going to make concessions. Shades has a different attitude toward it. He feels that Batman is here just to protect the one percenters. He's there to protect that business development. He's there to kind of trick them and kick them out, and that this isn't a good thing. And the two leaders are fighting here. And again, Rap is telling Shades we need to give Batman a chance. Shades is saying no. They've had enough chances. So the two fight it out. We see Shades. He does the double punch. So he kind of knocks Rap into the desk here. But the thing is that Shades is leaving the office, and Rap, who was just kind of like, you know, kind of thrown for a loop just for a moment. He's asking Shades, what are you going to do? And Shades says, I'm going to set off that extra nitro I planted in the basement. It's got a time fuse, and I know a hidden exit. So the thing is that Shades was looking for this type of trouble, this type of confrontation. He expected it. He had gotten his hands on some extra explosives, and he had independently placed them in the basement. And he knew an escape route. So he's kind of like saying, listen, we're going to take this building down. The ones who will listen to me, I have a way of getting them out. I'll warn them. Shades is not interested in being a martyr. He's not interested in having martyrs. He doesn't want those guys blown up. He's going to tell them because it has a timer. So he's going to say, listen, In 2 minutes, this building's gonna blow. Get the hell out. I have an exit. You can get out. We can avoid being arrested and so forth. Rapp doesn't like this. He wants to talk. He still likes the leverage that they have. He doesn't like Shade's freelancing like this. So he turns the tables on Shade, and he slams Shade into the desk. And Rapp says, "You're going no place, Shades. Not if I have to kill you to stop you." I'm going to turn the page. So the two men are fighting here. We see that Rapp is currently choking Shades. And Shades is kind of feeling this. So he's kind of feeling around the desk. There is a envelope opener. Now it looks like a knife. But the thing is, it's actually to open up envelopes. If you were a company that got a lot of envelopes, this was sort of like a nice, quick, easy way. But also, if you wanted to stab a client, you can use that too. So outside of the development, Batman shows up. He's a little resentful of it because again, he doesn't like this. He doesn't want to spoil his brand by kind of being seen as negotiating with lawbreakers. But there were extenuating circumstances. Commissioner Gordon was starting to cry because he says, if you don't show up and save me, I'm going to get fired. I'm not going to get my full pension. And Batman walks to the development. Now, the two gang members that are guarding the entrance is Mouse and Kitten. And Batman is announcing to Mouse, because he's not going to say anything to Kitten because Kitten's a girl and he doesn't have to follow the authority of a girl. So Mouse is going to let Batman in. He doesn't think it's a good idea for the Batman to come in here, but since you are asking for it, we're going to let you do it. Then Kitten kind of unlocks the padlock here. Turn the page. See another ad. This is an ad I've seen before. This is like diamonds, diamond rings, and it's specifically geared toward military men. So if you were a guy in the military and your main reading material were comic books, and they were popular with GIs, there were a lot of young guys there who still hadn't given up comics. In addition, comics were fast to read, they were fun, and it's something you can read, in a few minutes and keep yourself entertained while at the same time, being on duty. Some of these rings are actually quite pricey. They're like in the $100 to $300 range. Military guys, I guess at the time, had a lot of spare money. They also have a monthly plan here. Now the thing is, what's interesting is that they do take your military address and your various information, including your serial number, your discharge date, your social security number. I remember, this is even going into the 90s, where I would fill out job applications, and they would ask for the social security number. Obviously, they don't do that today. Did not realize how much identity theft had changed the culture when we all went online. Yeah, they're going to get your social security number. They want the name of your sweetheart. This company's like, hey, when we send this stuff to collections, they're going to know who to go after. Turn the page. So we go back to the story. Kitten opens the lock. The other gang members are warning Batman that the explosives are still active. And you better be careful, Batman. Batman understands this, and he says, like, take me to your leader, Mouse. So right at this point, Mouse is escorting Batman into the building and where the rental office is. Now it's dark inside the building because I think they might have cut off the electricity. And They're going up the steps. Mouse is about to open the renting office. That's where Rap and Shades had agreed to stay. And Mouse is making the point that it's really quiet in that office because those two tend to be a little loud when they're arguing or even when they're together. The Batman points out there's no lights. Where's everyone? However, Mouse, who has the flashlight, Batman doesn't have a flashlight, but Mouse does. He sees some legs behind the desk, and he says, "It's Rap." And the legs here look a little lifeless here. I'm going to turn the page. So it kind of looks like whatever issue Shades and Rap had, Shades ended it. Batman sees the body, says it's Rap all right, dead. And then Mouse says, with the blade sticking in him, "Oh wow, I just remembered what they were hassling about. Shades wanted to blow up the building. Duh. Maybe you kind of wanted to, put a little bit more elevation, alert on that news, dude, because he's treating it like the two are fighting over like a stick of bubble gum." And Batman surmises that if Shades wanted to blow up the building, that means Rap didn't because they had this disagreement. Now the thing is, the high rise is blacked out because it doesn't look like there's any electricity. But the thing is that Batman still wants to find Shades because Shades is a killer, and he wants to bring him to justice. But the thing is, he kind of wants Mouse's help. So the thing is, he doesn't want to do it alone. He wants Mouse's help. The problem is that Mouse is not particularly interested in murking himself. He doesn't want to self-delete himself from the census. So he wants to get the hell out of that building. And he's like F warning anyone else. Batman grabs Mouse, says, "Cool it, Mouse. Any second could be our last, like the Titan submersible. How fast it went for those poor men. Those poor rich millionaires and billionaires. Unless we get the Shades first." So Batman, he wants to search for Shades. Mouse here, he says, "Where the hell do we look, Einstein? Because this is kind of a big building here." Turn the page. So then there's an announcement. Once again, there's a building being drawn, so these guys don't have to draw human figures. They're making an announcement throughout the building, and they're basically warning everyone in the building, which is the other members of the Brave Barons, that in 2 minutes this building is likely to explode. So the other gang members who are occupying the building, they're being given fair warning to leave. Mouse is saying to Batman, "Shades is off his rocker. What does he have to lose now? Hung on one murder rap already." Batman's saying that that's the reason why he has to save Shades. He has to save Shades from himself. Shades, at this point, he's already committed a murder. He's looking at old Sparky here, and Shades might be one of these guys who wants to go out in a blaze of glory. Batman wants to stop that blaze of glory. He only wants the 1%ers to have that blaze of glory. So anyway, by the way, I made one little small error. It was actually Shades who made that announcement. So there was an announcement that the building was coming down in 2 minutes, but it was Shades who was making it. And because of this, Shades obviously is going to he's going to explode this building in 2 minutes. This is his blaze of glory here. Batman is saying, "Listen, we have to find this guy." Batman figured out that the bullhorn announcement came from the 10th floor. We're not told why he knows this, but probably from his training and his sharp senses, he figured out that it came from the 10th floor. He still wants Mouse's help. Mouse doesn't want to help. He's saying, listen, did you not hear someone say that in 2 minutes someone's going to blow up this building? And at least a minute has passed. So at this point, Mouse just wants to get the hell out. Batman says, I don't need him around anyway. And because of Batman's photographic memory, he already knows possible areas where Shades would be. Turn the page. Remember, Batman's an investor in this development, so he saw the blueprints. So we're at the next page. Batman is silently prowling the darkened building. He notices the detonator wire. So this explosive is the old-fashioned type with a plunger. Now the thing is that Shade said that he had these timed explosives in the basement, which meant that he's on the 10th floor, which meant he had a lot of that wire. So that's maybe the timing, because once he pulls the plunger and the wire is activated, it's going to have to travel like 10 stories. Batman comes in just as Shade is about to pull down on the plunger. Batman just kicks him in the head here, calls him a fool, and then he deactivates the plunger, so the explosives can't go off. However, Shade was only partially affected by that kick, and he collects himself and he grabs the bullhorn, and he takes the bullhorn, and he basically skulls Batman with it. So Batman here, he might be looking at a concussion after this adventure. You can turn the page. However, Batman, that's a leather cowl there. That's his pride. That's his crown, and he's protecting that. So the protection is there for Batman against that crowning. Shades notices that Batman did not have enough time to fully detach the detonator wires from the plunger. So the plunger is still active. Batman apparently, he probably just loosened a few of the wires, but he didn't get a chance to pull them out. Shades is kind of leaping for the plunger. So as he's falling, he plans on pulling down the plunger. Batman grabs him by the ankles, kind of pulls him away. So at this point, Shade's arms are out of range of the plunger. Batman kind of starts braining Shades here, slams into the floor. Shades doesn't have the same type of skull protection that Batman does, so this guy really does have a concussion. Batman then officially deactivates the detonator. So at this point, even if Shades grabbed the plunger, there's nothing he can do. And Batman would just start beating the crap out of him. He lets Shades collect himself, because he's going to have to ask this guy some questions. So he kind of needs him to have at least some of his facilities back, his mental facilities back. At this point, Shades realizes that he's not going to go out in a blaze of glory, that he's going to have to pay a criminal price for what he did. He's a little disheartened by this, because, he thought he was going to be the street legend, and that's not the case. And he's wondering why Batman just doesn't cuff him at this point. Batman says, "You said 2 minutes before this building blows. And he only knows you don't, kid." I don't know what the hell that means. And 48... Yeah, I don't know what Frank is trying to get at here. I'm going to turn the page. But apparently there's a little twist. Okay, so we're up to a music club advertisement. I explained about these music clubs. This is when they were starting to become in vogue. You either committed mail fraud and you got this stuff for free, or you got completely hosed, when you had to pay the premium prices after the introductory trial run. My sister had the latter done to her, and oh boy, she hated it. It just depressed her when she would see those bills. We'll see what's going on. Chicago. Yeah, Chicago has some songs I like. They're a little bland though. Then there's another one I don't recognize this one. There's Mark Lindsay, never heard of him. Crosby, Stills, and Nash, heard of them. Ronnie Dyson. There's a lot of artists I'm not really familiar with. And then, there's obviously Johnny Cash, Tom Jones, Simon and Garfunkel. The Mamas and the Papas were already having greatest hits. The best of the Bee Gees. This is obviously before Saturday Night Fever. The best of Bill Cosby. Oh, if we only knew back. He was doing that nonsense, that really evil stuff during this time. He was starting to do it. If we only knew. Kenny Rogers. Kenny Rogers was huge. I cannot tell you how big Kenny Rogers was in the late 70s, early 80s. Let's see. There's Donovan. Sly and the Family Stone. Dionne Warwick. I think this is when she changed her name. She ended up regretting it because she changed her name and then she had like a string of record flops. And Dionne was always saying that, well, it's because I changed my name. She added an extra N, I think. And she said when she went back to her real name, the hits came back. I think it was probably a combination of her trying to do different things. She had changed her name to make it look more appealing. She was probably recording different types of songs, and they just weren't working. So the bad luck wasn't from the name change in and of itself. It was sort of trying to change her image or her appeal. You got Bob Dylan, Bobby Sherman, of course. Turn the page. It's a two-page advertisement. James Taylor, Bobby Sherman, Joe Cocker, Blood, Sweat, and Tears. I like Blood, Sweat, and Tears. We see Led Zeppelin 2, but they don't have the official album cover. They have a placeholder cover. So it looks like this album was just coming out. And Mungo Jerry, Jethro Tull, and Otis Redding. Yeah, and here's the terms. It's a 2-year contract. So you get like 12 records for like $2.86. And you have to pay off a certain amount, and then you get other records where the markup is much greater, and that's where you get hosed. Turn the page. Gonna go back to the story. And we see Shades is talking to Batman. Shades is a little confused because he believed that he murdered Rapp. But Batman is saying, no, you didn't murder Rapp. And what Shades remembers is that, he had picked up that knife opener. That knife opener, he probably shanked Rapp. And Shades is like, that didn't kill him? And Batman's like, no. And Rapp's like, and Shades is like, well, then I didn't murder him, so I don't have to go to jail for that. Batman is saying, fuck no. You attempted to murder him, and you wanted to murder him, except you weren't smart enough to commit the crime correctly, you goofball. And they're talking about the time that the building's going to blow up, because there are still explosives, other than the ones that Shades had set in the basement. It was like Batman's saying how he figured out how things happened. Shades is saying that he had reached for the letter opener. Um, Batman is saying, "Hey, thanks for narking yourself out. I'll make sure to tell the DA and the police commissioner this stuff." But they noticed that they haven't been blown up yet. Which, yeah, they're gonna notice that. And the thing is, there's a figure coming into the office. So the thing is, this is all happening on the 10th floor in a particular office. There is a member, and it looks like from the silhouette that it is a member of the Brave Barons who's coming back to the office. So this person is kind of going to clean up the mess that they felt they left. They entered the room. Batman is expecting them, so is Shades. So Batman and Shades together, they stop the individual because the individual is armed here. And Batman hits them high, Shades hits them low. And we're going to turn the page. And it turns out it's Kitten. It's Kitten. They thought it was Mouse who did this. But it's Kitten. Batman's surprised. He said, "You're a girl. Like, what are you doing? You did stuff?" And Kitten says, "Who'd you expect, Batman? That spineless Patsy Mouse?" And Shades is going, "Oh, wow, his chick. A femme lib. But why you even suspected him, Batman?" Oh, suddenly, now she's a guy. So Shades is talking to Kitten as a guy, because he doesn't like that lack of feminine energy from Kitten. Again, this falls in real life. A lot of women in the radical movement noticed that, even though they were presumably fighting for equality for everyone, they were kind of chauvinistic. And I remember a member of the Black Panthers. She was one of the female members who was kind of high up. She had written about, how these guys were talking out of both sides of their mouth. They talked about freeing and liberating all blacks, but at the same time, they were like incredibly sexist guys. And it turns out that Kitten does have a motivation. She basically saw the male leadership as being incompetent. And what she wanted to kill both those leaders, get them out of the way, so then she could reorganize the gang under her leadership. So she wanted to take over, and she was saying, listen, what this movement needed was some feminine energy. And so that was her motivation. So I think what happened is that Mouse had told Kitten that Rap and Shades are fighting. And it looks like what happened was that Shades didn't finish the job killing Rap. Kitten came into the office based on the information that she had gotten from Mouse. She noticed there was no more fighting. She probably saw Rap on the floor groaning. So Rap was not dead. She took care of that. So she was, and she says, quote, I was the one wearing the pants. So I guess what happened is similar to the Mad Men, where the secretaries would do all this work, but they would get no credit from their chauvinistic bosses. So a lot of what was going on may have been planned by Kitten, but the guys were just kind of pushing her aside when it came to like actually being in the forefront. We see Batman and Shades. They're taking a hold of Kitten. One arm. They're holding on to her. Both of her arms. So they're gonna make sure she's gonna get the full rap. Batman. He maybe sometimes he thinks in terms of hierarchy. He said we got to keep these women down. Shades is like, I totally agree. We got to make sure that these women know their place. And Batman's kind of rubbing it into Kitten here. And he says, so now you've gotten your, quote, Place in the Sun, kitten, but was it worth it? Um, Place in the Sun is a very famous movie and also novel, and it starred Montgomery Clift and Elizabeth Taylor and Shelley Winters. My mom loved this movie, so every time it was on, I kind of had to watch it. It's a good movie. I'm not really a big fan of Montgomery Clift. He's considered one of the great actors of the 1950s. He was great in From Here to Eternity. I highly recommend watching that film. But Montgomery Clift always seemed like a little nervous and a little mousy, and that was his way of doing an introspective thing. Like he doesn't just act without thinking. He thinks about it. He's kind of nervous about it. But I always felt that he was about to throw up every time he spoke. But the place in the Sun would have been recognizable reference back then. Rapp is talking. He's talking in quotes. We see message across. I'm not quite sure what that means. Mouse, not mouse. Shades. Shades is saying the message across. He's saying, listen, we can't have chicks like running our thing here. So I'm going to help you out here, even though I know I'm going to get busted too. Shades, he's willing to accept whatever legal consequences have come his way. He's accepted, the one percenters as his masters, and he's just kind of hoping that maybe he'll get a little light sentence, which we know he won't. And that's the end of the Batman story. Turn the page. We got a list of survey winners. So apparently they had a survey where readers would write in. Yeah, it's about. They said 100,000 boys and girls wrote in. It kind of looks maybe a slight edge to the guys, but there's a lot of girls who took this survey too. A batch of them won color TV sets. Others won record players. Others won transistor radios. So yeah, they got involved in this. You can turn the page. We're gonna go to the Robin story now, because at this point Robin had gone to, I think, Gotham State or something like that, and he's in college and he's not at home anymore. We're told that the title of this story is "Danger Comes Looking," and there is some continuing from a previous issue. In World's Finest 200, Superman and Robin were teamed up. It should be noted that milestones like the 100th issue, the 200th issue, the 150th issue, the 300th issue, they weren't considered big deals back then. It was Marvel who made those big deals. And they did so when they came out with Fantastic Four issue number 100. It was like, they announced it as a big deal. But prior to that, DC did not make a big deal out of the 100th issue or the 200th issue. They just treated it like a regular issue. And Superman and Robin, they had an adventure there. The fans are being reminded of the issue to buy, but they're not given any type of flashback. They're just Robin is hinting that he was Robin Crusoe of space. So apparently it was a space adventure that the two had gone under. Superman is returning Robin to the campus of Hudson University. And this is sort of where Robin's stories are being generated at this point. Robin, he's in full regalia. He's in his primary colors here and his short shorts. And he's trying to figure out what's going on with the bombings. Again, bombings were a big problem on campuses because the students did not want the colleges to use their intellectual power to sort of do things they disagreed with. Because a lot of these colleges, they would do research for the military and so forth. And so anyway, Robin is thinking about what had happened to the ROTC building. That's like if you want to go into the military and you want to get like a taste of it, you join the ROTC. Remember Flounder from Animal House. And Robin is thinking that he can probably do better work investigating the bombings by just being Dick Grayson and not in his primary colors. However, as Robin is lost in thought, there are a few guys here, kind of football player type guys. They see Robin coming, they're whispering, and they're preparing to jump him. And we're being told that one of the biggest hazards of being a costume hero, especially on today's volatile campuses, is that instead of looking for danger, danger comes a looking for you. Or danger comes a looking. Yeah, this is kind of interesting. I mean, they still have building occupations and protests on campus. This happened during the Gaza incident. But those protesters were way different than the protesters back then. I remember one of the Columbia buildings was being occupied by students, but at the same time, the students were expecting the college to still provide them with food, and the police had cut off their DoorDash, and they told the protesters, no, you can't go to the student cafe and then come back. And the campus leaders of the protest, they were treating this like a humanitarian crisis because they couldn't order tofu from DoorDash. And I remember just shaking my head over that. So I'm going to turn the page. The creative team, before I do that, is Mike Friedrich, and the art is by Irv Novak and Dick Giordano. And they do a good job. So now I'm going to turn the page. So we see Robin, he's being jumped by these three guys. However, he's initially caught by surprise. However, he immediately recovers, and he goes into training here. He deals with one guy. He just gives him a kick that flips him over. Robin's largely working his judo moves. He has another guy. This guy's flying through the air. However, he is overwhelmed because even though he got the drop on these two guys, the third guy comes in and hits Robin with a left uppercut. The guy who punched Robin didn't expect Robin to be this tough, and kind of based on his costume, yeah. So Robin got punched in the gut. He is feeling this. He looks like he had just lost a game of Rochambeau. And the guys who jumped him, they're not going to beat up on Robin, but they're going to give him a message. And they're going to say, there's going to be more, Robin, if you don't lay off our group. And another one says, yeah, we'll make a deal. You don't hassle us on campus, and we won't hassle you. So these gang guys, they're not necessarily afraid of Robin, but at the same time, they don't want to deal with him either. So they're just saying, listen, guy, chase after the Joker or something. Gonna turn the page. And there's an ad here. Again, it's the moon monster thing. This has absolutely nothing to do with the moon. These guys must have had a ton of whatever they're trying to sell. And they're just praying that these DC fans would buy it. Can turn the page. So we see Robin. He's definitely bruised. He's bruised on the face here. He does wear his ascot, though. And he's thinking about the guys who jumped him. And he's kind of thinking that it was probably the jocks who did it. Now, Robin doesn't think the jocks are behind the bombing because those guys tend to be a little conservative. However, he is thinking that, listen, I have to investigate finding out who bombed the ROTC building, while at the same time I have to keep my eye on the jocks so they don't interfere. So Robin has kind of two separate antagonists that he has to deal with. One thing he did notice, Robin did not get a good look at the guys who jumped him, but he did notice their footwear, and he says that they were wearing orange tennis shoes. Okay, someone calls out for Dick, and again, he's in his civilian clothes because he's Dick, and he has two friends on campus. One is named Phil, and the other is Terry, and Robin's happy to see them. Phil makes a point that Robin's face got beat up pretty badly. But the thing is, because violence is a little common on the campus, he's probably thinking that maybe he got messed up by some jocks or maybe some muggers or so forth. We see Terry here. Terry's very, very happy to see Robin here. She's a beautiful blonde woman. I'm trying to think who she might look like. I can't place it. It's a very common look that she has. Maybe Sharon Tate. Not necessarily the best example, but she does look a lot like Sharon Tate. Dick is playing it off that he didn't get beat up, that it was just an accident. He accidentally bumped his face into some guy's fist multiple times. So anyway, Phil is talking about a computer club that's on campus, and this is before the desktops. So these are mainframes. These are the computers that would give out punch cards like Batman Adam West 66. Those are the type of computers. And apparently they're using these computers for dating, which makes sense. There actually was an episode of The Monkees that was based on computer dating. And I think there actually was a Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn movie based on computer dating. And it makes sense because you figure one of the biggest developments of the 20th century, late 20th century, was the desktop computer. And what was the most common activity that people did in front of a desktop computer? And that is probably whacking off at home at porn, which is what I was doing a lot of. So it's not unusual that these guys they mastered this electronic computer technology, and they're using it to get laid. We see Terry's trying to encourage Dick into signing up. Dick is saying, hey, there's a lot of tension going on the campus, but life goes on. So he's saying he knows that there's this bombing, there's a lot of political activity going on, but at the same time, Phil and Terry, they're still living their lives and they're still having fun, and they're saying, hey, this is a fun thing. You want to join in on it. And Dick likes that. The fact that, hey, they're not consuming themselves with just the current events. They're like, hey, they have lives too. And we see that Dick is interested in this. He's a guy named Dick. Hey, and he might want to use it. So he says, yeah, he's going to check it out. We see that he's looking at Terry as he says, I better split before you shoot me with one of those arrows in your eyes. I got to pick up an info sheet at the Student Union building. So Dick has a thing for Terry here, and Terry's somewhat reciprocating. So at least non-verbally, there's sort of that tension there. I'm going to turn the page. Yeah, Dick's a good-looking guy, and he's attached to the One Percenters. I'm going to turn that page. Dick is thinking to himself, as we see this building, once again, so the artist can avoid drawing a human figure. He's thinking about Terry, how much he really likes her, and that she's very good at reading people. So Dick kind of likes that. He likes someone like Terry who kind of is interested in people, and she'll kind of like try to figure them out. And then he's talking about Superman. He's thinking about Superman. This notice from the two brothers who were trapped on that other world with Superman and Me. I never read that issue, so I don't know what's going on. The letter is saying, Robin, I have important info for you, Marty and Dave. So whatever adventure happened in World's Finest 200, these two guys, Marty and Dave, who were students at Hudson University, they were involved. And so Robin shows up as Robin, and he meets the two guys, and they're kind of cueing him in. One guy saying, you and Superman cut out on us so fast, we had no way of getting in touch with you. We hoped you'd spot our information notice. Yeah, I think the guys were just leaving notices on campus, and they were just kind of hoping Robin would pick one up, and, as they're littering. And the thing is that they're giving information on the bombings that's going on. So these two guys are cueing Robin in on who the bomber might be. There is a thing called snitches get stitches, but these guys are doing it in the open here. So they're letting it be known he's talking to Robin. And whoever the bombers are, they're going to see these guys talking to Robin. They're going to wonder what they're saying to Robin. So anyway, they're kind of cluing them in on the rumors that they've been hearing, and that the thing is there might be some tension on campus between some of the radicals and some of the more conservative jocks. Robin, as he's listening, he sees a group of young male college students, and they're wearing orange tennis sneakers. And he's thinking these could be the bombers, because remember, the guys who jumped Robin, they were wearing these type of tennis shoes. Okay, I'm going to skip this ad. So then the two brothers, they're still talking. They're saying, listen, it's not those guys. The orange shoes, the orange tennis shoe things, it's a fraternity thing. That's a tradition at Hudson University. And the two brothers are mentioning, hey, you probably don't know much about this university if you didn't know that. So that's kind of a hint that these two are not going to necessarily associate Robin with Dick Grayson, even though, again, Robin, he just wears that kind of very small mask. And he's not hiding the hair or the body type or anything. So this is sort of the writers saying, hey, these two numbnuts are not going to suspect that Robin is Dick. So anyway, he gives them some names. He says the Broncos is what those guys are called in the orange shoes. Robin runs to the student center here, and he's running to the student center here at Roosevelt Hall. He knows where the place is. We see the hippies and the jocks, they're fighting it out. Very similar to what happened in New York between the protesters and the hard hats. If you want to know more about that movement, and that sort of inspired All in the Family a little, there's a movie called, I think it's called A Guy Named Joe. And it stars Peter Boyle in it. And that was Peter Boyle's breakout film, A Guy Named Joe. And it's about the hard hat movement. And it takes a look at the guys who were conservative during the hippie movement. It's Susan Sarandon's first film. She looks beautiful in it. I saw her last film, The Blue Beetle. She looks beautiful in it. This woman is almost immune to aging. And she sounds great. She looks great. And I'm sure she's going to live to 100, and she'll look like she's 46. So anyway, the fight's going on. Robin is going to break it up. He's going to jump into action, right into the middle. He's not going to decide who's right or wrong. He's just going to simply stop whoever's fighting at the time. Going to turn the page. Then we see Robin. He has to deal with these angry guys because both of them are like, hey, mind your own business. But Robin's not saying that. He's saying this is my business. He's breaking these guys up. So he's just simply wailing on whoever he can fight. And just through process of elimination, he'll end the fighting. The two groups retreat. So the jocks head to one side, the hippies on another. Robin is in the middle, mediating this. The jocks are telling Robin, hey, we're the good guys. The hippies are telling Robin, no, we're the good guys. And then one of the hippies who's kind of frustrated with Robin and, his pro-establishment ways, he jumps into a Beetle, a Volkswagen Beetle, and he says, listen, I'm going to take matters into my own hands. Robin knows of this student. His name is Frank Usher. And he's a guy who is radical. He's known on campus, kind of this Abbie Hoffman type. He was known to be kind of a hothead. So amongst the radicals, he tended to be a kind of a leadership guy and very radical. And Robin kind of knew him because, he has to profile these guys. I'm going to turn the page. And then suddenly, the Volkswagen Beetle blows up. Harry's blown up. And everyone's initially shocked at this. Apparently, there was explosives in the car. What they're guessing is that Harry was going to use the explosives somewhere else, and they simply blew up on him. So they're not thinking that someone detonated the car. They're thinking that Harry had these unstable explosives, and they just simply blew up, and kind of sucks to be him. Now, what's going on here is very interesting. Robin is lost in thought. He has to figure out what's going on. But meanwhile, around him, there are these whispers. It's like, does he know how ridiculous he looks?
Where did you get that dress? It's awful, and those shoes and that coat. Jeez.
I mean, look at that outfit. I mean, really, he's walking around like that. I mean, the guy's a little off, if you ask me.
Does he always dress like that?
Now, Robin is thinking that that Marty and Dave kind of warned Hank about this. Hank didn't listen. He's the cause of his own destruction. There are more kids surrounding Robin. They're whispering, "This guy looks ridiculous."
You like this?
I mean, really, Batman is attaching this guy to his branding with his primary colors. Robin is thinking,
unless you do think I'm cute.
if I only hadn't focused my mind on stupid orange shoes. And Robin is blaming that. And he's saying Hank's violent temper and his total mistrust of American society. I might have caught up to him in time to prevent his death. So Robin's feeling a little bit guilty here. There are still more voices saying, dude, seriously, who dresses this guy? And then we see a close-up of Robin in the very last panel, and he's thinking to himself, but why was I jumped in the first place? By whom? Why? Must I constantly be in the middle, both sides against me, when I will get to the root of all this violence? And then Robin's saying, maybe I should look for that weird kid who dresses really badly that everyone's talking about. I'm sure that weirdo is the one who set off the bombs. So again, they're kind of addressing the issue that, Batman, Robin, all the heroes at DC, they're very pro-establishment. But at the same time, they realized that their readers were becoming more anti-establishment in their feelings. So they kind of had to navigate that thing where you don't want, Robin to be a narc. But at the same time, DC was run by kind of these conservative guys, and they wanted to make sure that, Robin stood for justice in the American way. The Robin that Burt Ward embodied. So again, this is touching on contemporary issues. In many ways, DC did that more than Marvel. But it never caught on with DC because, again, they did not serialize their stories. There is continuity in this story, but you figure it's going to go away soon. And we're told that the next issue of Robin will be Robin Wiped Out. Okay, so I'm going to go to the letters here. They're talking about an issue, The Man with 10 Eyes. And from what I understand, most of the readers liked it. Even the readers who had criticism of it, they were engaged, and and some of the readers are saying it's been a long time since I've been this engaged in a story. So the story, The Man with 10 Eyes, it did catch on. One reader really likes Irv Novak and Dick Giordano's work. Can't blame them. They draw good stories. He liked how Alfred was drawn, not like as a caricature, but as an actual person. Now we saw Alfred was mostly sitting on his ass watching TV in this issue. Next writer saying he had a lot of fun with the Batman issue, the Man with 10 Eyes. He's basically saying, listen, I've been buying Batman out of loyalty, but this story really kind of grabbed me. He points out a few errors in the story here. Editorial doesn't address them directly, so they kind of got caught, but they don't want to talk about it. And the next letter was complimentary. So it was a story that landed. Okay, let's see if there's any ads to look at. There's one for some jewelry. They're tying in Woodstock here. Woodstock happened in 70. This is 71. Woodstock still had some juice. And kind of ads for novelty stuff. And that's it. And that is my review of Batman with Robin, issue number 230, and I hope to have more reviews up soon. Bye.